guys, it's David Mickle here with another Boss tutorial. Today we're going to go over some color grading techniques and also using transfer modes and going through them and looking at how we can have a more powerful result with our color grading than just using typical just color grading methods. So let's begin. First of all, just have a look at, I suppose, our footage. This here is some raw footage, and you can see the colors in the background. They're not, not great greens, and it's a little bit washed out. As you kind of color grade it, we can get some more color into it, more pleasing to the eye. So as we begin, start a new composition, and we'll just start with our transfer modes and what they are and how we can use them. So I suppose basically, in the most simplest sense, transfer modes are how two different layers react with one another. And if you don't have your transfer modes up, make sure that modes is selected. Just right click here, and this is all your different transfer modes. Now, so as we can begin, say tinting this footage, we could use transfer modes for that. We want to get some matrix footage happening. Press T to get up your opacity and bring that down. So this obviously is not looking great. The green's affecting our blacks as well, and it doesn't look too convincing. You wouldn't really see that in the matrix, would you? Now, see, we can use different transfer modes to kind of get a better result. Now you could use overlay or screen for whatever effect you're going for with this application, or you can put the layer behind, and we can use our linear light transfer mode. And so, like I was saying, the blacks stay black and the color kind of comes through your whites. Now, if you weren't happy with that color, you can come over here to fill, chuck a fill on, and in real time you can get the different look or color feel that you want, which is a good way of doing things, I suppose. Quicker to change your color. So I suppose that's one transfer mode, to being able to tint your footage. Another way of using transfer modes, if we wanted to get a grungy look on our footage, make a black solid, chuck that over the top. If we go to our classic color burn, again press T and bring down our opacity. As you can see there, we can get some grungy look, and then again you can incorporate different colors and stuff in the background to get the look that you want. That's one thing. Another thing we can do is introduce some textures into our footage, and rather than just having just a simple color, we can introduce texture to make it a little bit more interesting. So just press S, bring our scale up, and again use our different transfer modes here, and just see the different looks you can get. I like the linear burn for this one here, so it's making it a lot more interesting. Rather, like I was saying before, just a standard yellowy or orangey look, we can get some textures happening there, and things a bit more interesting. I say interesting a lot, don't I? But here's another application. If we had some whites in our footage or our PDF in this example, and we wanted to get rid of all the white and just have colors come through, we can change our transfer mode to darken, and as you can see, we're just getting the colors coming through and it's getting rid of all the whites. So there's lots of different things you can do with your transfer modes. Just jump in there and have a look and see what all the different transfer modes you can do, and lots of cool things. One last one. If we wanted to contain our footage within this hello, go Stencil Alpha, and then as you can see we have, yeah, I'm yet to find an application for this, well, me personally, but I'm sure down the track I'll use it. But you can yeah, do that. So I've gone through every single different transfer mode. There's lots of different powerful things you can do with this, but yeah, like I said, just have a play around and see the different effects you can have. Now with actual color grading, we can jump over here and look for color finesse. Now this plugin here is included in our latest versions of After Effects. Before, it was just a plugin you had to buy, about $600, but it's really cool now that color finesse is included in your standard install of After Effects. So we can just chuck that on. Okay, just before we do jump in there, if we were to just use just chucking our saturation effect onto our footage and to put some more color in, we don't really have control over the different aspects of the footage. As in, if I come in, it'll make more sense. We can change the saturation of the highlights, the midtones, shadows, or the whole overall thing, which is cool about color finesse. You have a lot more control over your footage rather than just chucking on a standard color correction plugin from your standard palette over here. But I suppose let's go over some of these things in here. Hopefully you're a little bit familiar with the different what saturation and brightness and stuff does. I'm sure we come across that before, but we can just dial in some color here to get those colors a bit greener. But I suppose the other way you could go is to come in here and pull out your colors a little bit, and then use your transfer modes, chuck in a bit of a tint and get some cool footage happening. But for this exercise, we'll kind of make our footage a bit pretty. And okay, so that's good. So obviously our saturation, we're getting some more color, boosting the colors, our hues. Sorry, I'm on the midtones, not doing too much. You know, changing the color, so you can do some funky things with that. Making some cool music video or something. Vibrance, it's kind of hard to see here, but if you had more you know, some yellows and stuff, will boost up yellows and make them nice. With brightness too, this clip isn't too bad. It's quite what's the word I'm looking for? It's not like really poppy and bright in your face, but sometimes when you start mucking around with your saturation and vibrance, your footage can get quite bright and blow out a little bit. And if you kind of pay attention to some good TV shows or movies, you're not really getting that kind of in your face pop color. It's a little bit more subtle. It looks good, but it's not crazy brightness. So you can just pull the brightness down there, a little bit in your masses, a little bit in your midtones or highlights, maybe leave the shadows, stuff like that. Now you could go in here and you could change the contrast, or you could use, say, your levels and crush the blacks. So I suppose that's a basic thing, is to get your footage looking a little bit better, is to come here and get a bit more contrast happening. So yeah, that's play around with that, see what that does for you. Obviously you want that on, but probably not that much. Okay, and then say for curves, you could come in here and rather than tinting your footage with transfer mode, you could just use this as well. But if you wanted to get a specific color and you wanted to, rather than mixing your different colors, you could just, again, like we said before, chuck in a solid layer and use your transfer modes and get your color that way. Now this footage here the white balance isn't too bad, but you may have some footage that is too blue or too yellow. might look at something like that or something like that because your camera wasn't set correctly. And then here is where you can kind of fix that up. If our footage was yellow, obviously you could do the opposite thing and introduce a little bit of blue into your footage, and that will counteract it. Or you could use, sometimes it's a little bit tricky, you could use these droppers, and it's difficult because you have to get, you know, an exact black or an exact white, which can be difficult to find sometimes. And as you can see, what that's done is that's changed how these curves are. So you can just manually, you can see down here the input and say if that is too much black for you. You can just dial it in. But I'm kind of happy with just coming here and just giving it, crushing the blacks a little bit, and then not really playing around with the color too much in here. You could again crush your blacks using this or this here, but let's just leave that as it is. So I suppose very briefly going over just the things. You could spend hours in here explaining everything. Well, one thing I found is if you are playing around with your saturation and you have like a red flower or a red dress and it's like completely blown out, I like to use a CR gain and just pull that down a little bit, and that'll kind of control your reds a little bit better. But you have to make sure that you don't do too much because things will start looking a bit green. So that's just one little thing in here I found really useful. There's different ways you can do it, but just play around with that. So yeah, basically just play around with your color, and you can fix up your footage if it's looking a little bit yellow or blue. Play around in here and get that right, or use the eyedroppers, they automatically do it for you. Different limiting stuff depending whether you're broadcasting or stuff, but I won't go into that too much. And you can pay attention to your scopes, and they'll kind of help you color grade a bit. It's a little bit difficult, I suppose, to see here, but you can see as you change your footage, you can see that's affecting your different scopes. So that's like a whole different other thing, you know, using scopes, but won't go into that. So let's, I suppose, undo that because I don't want to get that back footage how we want it. Okay, so you can see just now, just simply just chucking a few little things, our footage is looking a lot nicer. The colors are a lot richer, and the blacks are a lot darker, looking a bit nicer. Now, for whatever reason, we wanted to chuck some blue tinting into our water, but we obviously don't want our grass to be blue, so we can use some masks along with our transfer modes. So what we'll do here is, what am I doing? A bit lighter, check that behind, lose linear light, just T on our blue, bring that down a little bit, get the color we want. And then doesn't look too bad, I suppose, the colors in the background, but it's not obviously looking a lot nicer if it's not. So it all depends what you want, what look you're going for, I suppose. And then we can copy and paste that layer, and then we'll just get a standard version of our footage, and then underneath we have the blue tinted. So now one thing is, if we're mucking around with duplicate layers and we still want identical color finesse affecting that, and if we want to change something, obviously we'd have to go in there and change both color finesses, which isn't ideal, a bit slow. So we can just chuck on an adjustment layer, and cut that off, paste that on to your adjustment layer, and if we delete that, our adjustment layer is filtering this Color Finesse plugin down on all of our layers. So that's a quicker way if we wanted to just quickly change something. We get in there, change it, and it'll affect everything rather than individually going through and changing it. Okay, so we can do that. And so here we want our blue layer to come through so we can see it. So we just chop on a mask, use our pen tool, and I quickly just rotoscope this out. Now, obviously I've gone the wrong way. The way that I think is opposite. So it's easily fixed. You can just jump onto where the mask layer is, press M, it'll bring up your mask, and just invert it. And obviously that's a little bit too much blue for what I want. So just bring that down. And then if we have a look here, we've got a very hard edge because of our mask. If we to turn that off, we can see it's very hard. So just with our mask layer that we just did, we just press F, and that'll bring up our feather, and you can see there that you'll have a softer edge. So we want too much, so chuck that on, and we take that down a bit again. Okay, so that looks good. Our colors are good in the background here, and then we've got a nice blue water, and obviously that's going to change. We need to animate that. So just quickly, if you weren't sure how to do that, just come in, press M again, bring up your mask. With your mask path, press the stopwatch and get a keyframe up, and come to the end. So I'm just going to do this really roughly. Now just so you can actually get in there and change the actual individual points, just make sure that you don't have this mask selected, just a layer, and it'll let you change these points individually. This is going to be a bit tricky with this here because we can't see what's going on anymore. But it's obviously really bad. Okay, but you get the general idea. I'm not going to spend too much of your time getting this perfect, but there you're able to have your color exactly where you want it. So you can make as many masks as you want, different footage and stuff, and contain the color where you need it and to get the desired look. Now, so as a popular thing nowadays is to use a bit of a vignette around your footage. You can do that really quickly by making a black solid, again using our mask. Now if you click and drag, you get these nice handles to be able to get a nice smooth curve, but if you just click quickly, you'll just get a hard curve. But you can change that easily by using the convert tool. If you later on you wanted to change it, you could just use your convert tool to convert between whatever you wanted. Anyway, okay, so just bear with me, this is all going to make sense in a second if you're not quite sure what the heck I'm doing. Again, we use that method that we did before, and pressing M on our black solid will bring up the mask, invert it, press F, bring up our feather, we'll bring that. Now you can just twirl that open and get your expansion of the mask path, and if you need to do that, but 0 is okay for us. And you could use different transfer modes to get a different look that you wanted. Bring the opacity down. We could just use normal black and bring that right down. So this obviously isn't a great vignette. You can do a lot of things. You can animate your vignettes so that as the camera's moving, the black kind of just stays over there and kind of moves off the screen. Top Gear are really good at that. You'll notice is a lot of their vignettes. It can always be like solid black up in the top corner, but because they kind of animated and do some funky things with their vignettes, it's got a really cool effect happening. But yeah, so that's that. So I suppose, yeah, we play around with your different transfer modes, see what looks you can get and how that reacts. We can use our color finesse to get in there and to manipulate things a lot more powerful than anything over here. And we can chuck on some funky vignettes with and changing our colors with masks. Changing our colors, sorry. Putting our colors exactly where we need to put them. So I suppose that's about it for this tutorial. I hope this has been helpful for you guys. Feel free to leave any comments or any requests for some new tutorials. Okay, so that's about it. So we'll see you around.